Hi guys, it's me, Rohana Irene, and welcome to my channel. I know it's been a little bit since I recorded. It's going to take a little while as I'm picking up the pace and I'm figuring out what's going to go in the blog and what goes on the podcast. And then, lo and behold, I learned some cool stuff today. So I did this whole recording earlier. I'm going to start with the preface because what I've been really doing is the website is a little bit not formal. The podcast, not formal. There might be a trend. And I really, really wanted to be like, hey, you know what? I thought it would be funny if I just put a picture of my zodiac, of that, like my astrological chart, and then be like, here's my disclaimer. This is what I plan to do. You can tell I have good intentions. But I've got 6 placements in Sagittarius, and I'm a handful, even for me. But I'm trying. But then I run the risk of getting told, like, my own words. I hate that when it happens. Like, when people tell you your words back at you. And, yeah, that's probably what would happen. I tend to tell students, when we're going through astrology and everything, I'll say that. Now, remember, astrology is descriptive, not predictive. And that means that, essentially, it's not like a prescription, right? It's just a description. It's a potential challenge. But it doesn't mean that just because I have 6 placements in Sagittarius that I can't get myself organized. I totally can. And later this week, I'm going to show you about that. Because, yeah, we've got that in the works. But I have to go through all my schedules and all my books and make sure that, I got to pick the ones that I like. I have this tendency to use like 4 or 5 of them. So just bear with me. Trust that I will share what I know, and I am always open to suggestions on better ways to do things. How about that? Because eventually, when I get some cool kids up in here to do classes with me and such, well, then we'll have a dialogue. Until then, we live in a world of COVID, and when people have a cough or they are kind of sick, we're not allowed to hang out anymore. So, y'all get me today, but we were going to be doing witchy stuff. And I figured kind of the way I've been breaking it up, and I think how it's going to go, I'm just putting it out there for accountability. How about that? What I would like to do, because I mean, there's plenty of channels out there. Like, nobody really needs specifically me to teach them anything, and I get that, and that's fine by me. But part of the way that I learn, and part of the way that I was taught, teaching helps that. Like, teaching helps to reinforce what you know. And so sometimes, like, sharing your information with somebody else, it's helpful. And it doesn't matter that everybody else, there's a bunch, like, I was looking today for sigil stuff because we're going to be, by we, it's whoever's doing stuff for New Moon here, going to be doing some sigil stuff, breaking down some of our own personal boundaries. And I'll get into that in a second. But, so I was just looking up other people's, I mean, pretty much everybody does it the same way. You can go and find, like truck tons of videos where you'll see, they'll say you'll write out the sentence and then you'll go through it. And some people will say, cross out everything, cross out all the vowels, or just go through it like, letter by letter and then mark them off. So if you say, I want to have love in my life, quick example, right? You'd spell it out and then you would use like the letters that are only in there once. And see, I mean, probably on the blog later, I could just link to some things. I mean, I don't necessarily have to show y'all. Knowledge is pretty much out there if you want to find it these days. That's not what the issue is. But a lot of the reason that I wanted to do this specifically is because, like I said, part of the way that people learn, myself included, is through teaching and dialogue and Discord. So part of the reason that I started the podcast in the first place was because I didn't have a whole lot of people to work out, like to do stuff with here in Idaho. I mean, we've got a lot of great witches here, but we've been in quarantine for like ever. And with the, like immune system compromise, like especially my son is too. And I mean, with me, I kind of like whatever, I like to party. Sure. But I really don't want COVID and I don't want to start a political debate. So we're going to leave it there. That being said, I ran into a couple other podcasts that are doing, kind of similar things in different ways. A couple that I really like, I'll probably end up sharing those, just so, the whole point of it is to be able to have this transparent practice. So I'm going to work on a lot of the stuff that's here on the channel is going to be when I'm doing stuff. We also have a page on Facebook. We don't use it that often, but we totally should because, like, I was going to show you, like, the gaming area all over here. But the area in between here and the gaming area, I don't want to put that on camera. So You're gonna have to wait till next time. But we have art, gaming, magic. So you might just combine them. I'm really not sure. I know that the transparency and the practice is what I was going for. However that ends up working out, it's going to work out how it's going to work out. So for now, speaking of transparent practices, I wanted to share a little bit of what we're going to do for new moon and talk while I do that. I've got a few things that I got to get ready, and I figured I would just kind of keep it casual. And you know, it's funny because back in the day I used to do this with Periscope, but they don't have Periscope anymore. And I'm not cool enough on YouTube to do YouTube Live yet. So I have to record and talk to myself and then upload it again. We'll get there. All right, well, we've got some stuff, like I said, already started. See, ta-da! I'm going to get out of the way, move some things around, and then we'll talk about the new moon coming up, the Lionsgate 8-8. Whoop! I'm thinking of it as sort of like an epic treat yourself, like self-care Sunday. So it's going to be good things. We're going to talk about a couple ideas. And if any of you guys do watch this tonight, I'm going to post it up here soon. So here in Boise, it's about 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. And we've got the new moon hitting in the morning. So some people might want to start like kind of putting stuff out tonight. That's why I was just going to put this all out here kind of last minute. I do that a lot. I kind of do like by the seat of my pants. I'm working on it. But either way, I'm happy to share with you guys. And yeah. Come up with a couple of ideas. I know there's a few people out there that are like, oh man, there's something up with this moon. Yes, there is. I'm glad you noticed. Not everyone's having a great time with it. We're going to try to help you guys too. All right, so I'm going to get some ritual stuff ready and then we'll be right back. Thanks, guys. Hi, guys. All right, welcome back. I was trying to get everything together here, and there's not a whole lot I'm doing on the altar just yet. We're going to do that tomorrow. But I still wanted to talk about the moon for tonight. And just kind of, if you didn't see the blog or the podcast, we already did like a very basic, complete moon cycle like an overview. And still working out the kinks on it. I mean, it has the information there. I just didn't like how everything came on, like how it was visually. So I just wanted to make sure we just kind of got everything in place. Because the new moon is tomorrow, and we have the Lionsgate tomorrow. And you know, I've noticed in the last couple of years that the Lionsgate is like this bigger and bigger and bigger thing, when it didn't used to be that way. Like I don't even think I heard about it when I first started like learning astrology, and granted that was a long time ago. But yeah, I don't think I actually like. No, not until I mean a few years ago I did. I've noticed it's like I want to say 2012. Is when I've noticed this influx. And so I've been kind of paying attention to it each year to be like, what's up? Like, it's a thing. It's like, it's in, you know, the older astrology books and those sorts of things. And there's a lot of mythos behind it. But just because there's a lot of mythos behind something does not make it kosher. But I'm not going, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. Did you guys know that the last season of the Mage Against the Machine podcast, the most popular video was the conspiracy theory one, one of the last ones that we did on Sumer. And so, you know, I mean, I want to be talking about what people are talking about, but I'm also like researching all of the stuff that I learned, and now I feel dumb because why didn't I ever check this stuff before? So it's keeping me super busy. But yeah, I could totally get sucked into the conspiracy theories. But what I decided that we are going to do instead, anyways, hi, don't mind me. See? Super casual. It's like we're here, just hanging out. Is that I wanted to talk about the moon stuff just really quick, just kind of touch base on a few things and make sure that everybody kind of understands, and we're all on the same page. Because I had a couple people asking me about ritual and what we're going to do for tomorrow, and normally the individual that asked me was totally correct. Normally for new moon, especially like when we're starting out and stuff, and we're getting used to the moon cycle. I usually will recommend, you know, do your intentions on the new moon, follow through with a confirmation on the full moon, and keep track in the journal. Ta-da! Actually, I have both of mine here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to start it as a, just do a new entry. I technically, and I can show you some of the stuff in here, I technically already went through, and I mean, we all have our different ways of doing it, so keep in mind, it's probably not going to look organized to y'all, but it's organized to me. I know where this stuff's at. Like, so I started off with right here. I almost always will draw stuff. See? Drawings. Yeah, drawings. And then I just sort of like zen out on it. It's just my own little process because I can sit here and I can do it and I can not think about it. Like I'm not thinking about specifically what I'm thinking about, what the symbols represent and what I'm drawing. Kind of, it's definitely, considering that the fact that like either I'm talking to people or I'm writing online content, like that's all I do with my day. Like sometimes it's nice just to sit down and be like in my own head. But there's a reason that I keep myself crazy busy all the time, because I don't want to hang out with myself in my own head. So, introduced drawing to the brain a couple of years ago, and it's been beneficial, not gonna lie. So, you can tell just from the brief look that it is not what I would normally tell you. You know, it's not the normal, like, I have the time right here. I work the time into it. I work the correspondences in. I have the 2 pentagrams that I used, as well as the Star of David, like the 6-pointed star. I use that for the representation of the as above, so below, and the opening of that gateway, that portal. If you're not familiar with the Lion's Gate portal, I don't remember, I mean, because I didn't go into it too much, because I was just trying to get the basic moon stuff on the last podcast we did. But the essentially what the Lion's Gate is, for those that aren't familiar, is so there's a star, right? Sirius. Why so serious? Why? Because he's a big badass star. And when we align with Sirius, there's supposedly, the theory of it goes, is that there is this opening, and because there's all that, you know, there's the energy, it's closer than it is normally. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, see, this is where it gets me, because now every time I hear a fact, I want to like, no, I have to fact check that before I say it, which is really kind of how we should be, like as human beings at this point, because we have so much access to information, and you know, it's not gotten any more difficult to like pull an over on somebody. But you know what? I'm gonna do it right here, because I have the tools and the resources to do it. So I read somewhere that Sirius is 2 sizes bigger, or double the size of our sun. So let's see, hey, wait a minute. Hey, Google, how big is the star Sirius compared to our sun?
Sirius has a radius of 1,190,000 kilometers.
Hey, Google, what's the radius of the sun?
The mean radius of the sun is 432,690 miles.
Hey, I learned facts, not fiction. So, our sun's, if you couldn't hear that, I don't know if you can. I am like addicted to my nest these days. But yeah, Sirius is about twice the size of our sun. See, I knew, learned something new. But I do know, like, when the way that it lines up in the night, I mean, they've been seeing it for, you know, since ancient Egypt. They say that the pyramid of, I believe it was Giza, is that it lines up on 8/8, right around that time. It'll line up so that it's in the, you know, because it's in Orion's belt, and it'll be right overhead. And a lot of the practices that go with it, basically they say that it's a time of abundance, of wealth, of opportunity, of growth, of manifestation, because you have this ability where it's opening up that portal between the two. And so because of that energy, it's kind of like, think about it like when you've got like one circle, right? And you got another circle, and you're like this. So like if you're here and here, you have to be like, it's really hard to show you with my hands, I'm sorry. But if you line up correctly, right? And you line up, dune, makes it easier. Just go straight through both of them, and then it opens everything up. That is how I've always had it explained to me. I've done rituals for it like the last couple of years. I've really taken like a serious like interest in the practice of it, just to see, because like I said, it wasn't something that was generally talked about like when I first started learning astrology. And that's not that uncommon. Like, you know, I think about the classes and stuff and people that were teaching back in the 90s, and then what I know now. And as we're digging through this stuff and checking all the information and checking our facts, like, you didn't always have people that really knew what they said that they did teaching things. And so because of my own practices and checking them, I was, you know, I don't know, I guess I'm just more mindful of it now. And I want to be like, yeah, well, here's my facts beforehand, before anybody calls me on it. So when it came to Sirius, I looked up part of it. I didn't look up all of it. I went through the empirical process of proving to myself of, can I see the difference when I'm utilizing these energies? I can tell you this much. Yes, I have. So this year, I actually started last month on the full moon. I hadn't started the moon course yet, that we've been working on the moon magic course. And so I was doing, it wasn't private intentionally. It was just, a couple students were out of town, and people have been busy over the summer, and then there's COVID, and I don't know. So it ended up just being me last month. And in February was before I had taken a sabbatical last year, and I stepped back into things at Ostara this year. And so February I was still kind of doing my own, that was private. And so that moon is connected to the last full moon of last month. And the full moon of last month was in Aquarius. Our full moon this month coming up is going to be in Aquarius as well. And so the way that it's working in the beginning part of Aquarius with the last moon, you're going to have the end part of the culmination of portion of that Aquarian energy later in the month that you're going to be able to utilize. So when you look at all of this energy between the lionsgate and the energy that's been kind of lining up, through space and time, so to say, over the last, really the last year, it's been like culminating and building. And things definitely seem to be kind of working on top of each other. And I'm starting to notice, I don't know if it's that I'm more comfortable with astrology than I used to be, or if it's like my practice is improving. So therefore it's, I really get kind of leery, I guess, of looking up the astrology beforehand, because I don't want to be able to say, hey, this is going to happen because of that. And that's really easy for all humans to do. It doesn't matter how much training you've had. So when I'm doing like these moon classes, though, I don't have a choice. I guess I do. I could not teach the classes, but I'm learning as I'm teaching them. So that's my justification. Then I do have to kind of look up the moon and the cycle and know what's going on astrologically wise beforehand. And so like when I'm looking at everything, I'm kind of building on top of each other. Even if you didn't do anything at all, if you didn't do anything last month, and you haven't even started anything, first and foremost, I would say, like I was saying earlier, maybe not most, but a good deal of people are going to be feeling the tension of everything everything's kind of lining up right now. So if you take into consideration, we've got the sun in Leo, and then we've got the conjunct planets in Leo as well. The moon is exalted by Jupiter, so we've got expansion right there, which is good. And we've got that kind of key direction through the Jupiterian expansive look, kind of, it's sort of happenstance. But on the other side of it, we've got Uranus and Saturn, Uranus and Saturn. They're pulling into an oppositional spot. So like what we're seeing here is we're seeing fortuitous signs. We're seeing we've got a trine. I need to double check. See, I like this whole thing of checking your resources as you go. It's kind of weird because then I was very much strictly trained. Like if you're going to teach a class, you don't have notes. If you're doing a public ritual, you do not have notes. You do not have paper. You have that down like you're like doing a Broadway play. You're not going to be like, hey, like if you don't know how to, do the charge of the goddess by memory, and you don't know how to do the corners. And I still kind of agree with that. Don't get me wrong. But these are facts. And I don't know. I would rather be, let's see really quick. We're just going to look where Chiron is at. I thought it was a trine with the moon. Either way, whether it's a trine or conjunct, either way, it's positive because it's helping with that. It's kind of like Chiron's generally looked at sort of as a wounded healer, a wounded teacher, I guess you could say, because of his placement and because the backstory behind Chiron. If you don't know the backstory, I suggest look it up. Maybe I'll do a read through one of these days, but not today. Chiron is that mentor type though, for all the reasons, and he's really good at it. He knows how to do his job. That's not the problem. So it's like, oh, it's such a bad thing that not really. Those that can't do teach. He's not teaching gym, so he's ahead of the game. That's how I look at it. Let's see, the Chiron placement for 8. And keep in mind, the full moon comes in, or the full moon, I'm sorry. The new moon comes in the morning. So it's going to be tomorrow morning. So that's why I was saying if some people want to start some stuff out tonight, it's probably smart. Because with Uranus and Saturn, as much as we have a lot of great energy for manifestation, we also have a lot of chaos. It's like straight up, just like throw your hands in the air and be like, chaos! And like, where's it at? Where's it at? No. See, I respect the chaos. I'm okay with this. I'm a big fan. It's not like it was definitely a learned trait. I started out, it was the 90s. So I started out Wiccan and Dianic, and then I changed my course. And I don't know. That being said, it's not this kind of chaos. It is a very Saturn watching the fence being like, what you gonna do? And you're like, nothing. You just skirt back. But the problem with that is that once Saturn kind of, if you catch the attention while he's in this like funk, so to speak, it's not good. And it's unpredictable. Like when you throw the Uranus, the energy from Uranus in there, and like how it's all placed right now, it's unpredictable at best. So I was doing some reading, and I was just kind of putting things together in my own right. And I had actually had some stuff I was starting, because with the whole intention process of the new moon, is generally that's kind of our go-to. But it's sort of like, on one hand, I always say that's, the energy is there. It's primed for that. Specifically right now with the Lion's Gate, with Mercury hanging out conjunct, that communication is going to be clear so that you're able to open yourself up to your higher self. So if you feel comfortable, that's how I would put it. I would originally I was going to be doing like a kind of a open virtual ritual tomorrow. And we were kind of talking about it. And it was sort of, it wasn't even last minute. It was just sort of one of those things, sort of like play it by ear. And we did do that, like once a month. We'll be doing that more often over on Hydrophont on our learning library. And we'll probably start including those once we get Patreon set up, because we're going to have to do something. But again, not the time for that right now. We will, when we figure out our solutions, we will let you know. Until then, and I mean, even, we're going to be here no matter what, whether or not we have, like, I have been doing this like literally my entire life, like, weddings and wickedings, and from one end of the life spectrum to the other for, 20 years. And that was not generally how I made my money. I'm not concerned about that. I was just saying it might go over to the Patreon later. For now, I would expect at least for the next month or two, everything's going to continue to be on Hydrophont. So we will start doing this more often, because I'm going to be testing I did the whole new worksheet and everything, because we wanted to turn everything to be completely correspondence, because most of our stuff forever has always been in person is preferred, and then correspondence if you need to. And I think a lot of training has been like that. The Golden Dawn was like that when I was there, and now you can just go on to archive.org and you can find that paperwork, and it's like, oh, okay, you just learn it now. It's like all the conversations for later though. Let's see, really quick. Chiron, what you doing? What you gonna do, son? Don't tell me exactly where it's at tomorrow. Why are you not? That's not cool. Let's try one more thing. Let's try that. I just want to see how it works. All right, and yep, that's it. Trine with Chiron, which is pretty cool, because like I said, you're gonna have the moon opposing Saturn and Uranus. And the thing with it is that when you're looking at that kind of energy, you already have the kind of the hard no from Saturn. I mean, we already know that. We expect that. We expect him to be a grumpy Gus. I don't know. Was it the chicken or the egg? Was he like that already? Was that energy that way? Did we never like it? I don't know. Humanity does not seem to be a fan of being like structured. So maybe that's it. But when we're looking at the energies, those two specifically, it is talking a lot about, feeling like the energy that I would expect from it. And I'm kind of seeing, but what I was expecting before, and like what I'd written in my book before, was anxiety, insecurity, lack of self-confidence, which is weird because we're going into this introspective time in a new moon in Leo. And some people don't really like recognize it right off the bat. But like if you think about a new moon, right? The full moon, everything gets all crazy usually. And it's like science, there's some science studies that support it. There's some that don't, and that's not the point. Anecdotally, I can say from my life, as long as I've been around, I've been paying attention to the moon cycles for the last at least 20 years. And whether or not I'm addressing it and I'm giving it this credence that it doesn't technically have, the mind is all. So this is my microcosm. And in my microcosm, that moon makes a difference. I don't care. That's kind of how I put it. So I know what these energies, how they generally influx. And this is part of the reason that I try not to look too far into zodiac beforehand, because, I know for me and for lots of people that feeling of that energy of that planet is very like solid, right? So in that regard, you have all of that energy that's going and it's culminating and it's building up. but at the same time it's being blocked. So our suggestion and what we kind of like ended up planning on doing was we ended up putting things together. We still have everything that we're going to be like starting. So if you're actually starting something, then awesome, that's fine. You've got the new moon in the morning. Sleep through the worst part. All right, and we are back for our last portion. Just going to go over some of the last details and what I wanted to do, because for the next, probably next week, I think, we should have everything together for both the moon magic, the walkthrough for whoever's going to be testing that out, and then also we should have the dream journal and the ritual entry and all the different, like the journal templates. We should have them up there. But with that in mind, I figured since I'm going to be doing it right now, and in the sake of a transparent practice, the easiest way to do it is, hey, on my next ritual that I'm going to be doing, I just plan it out like I was, you know, new or something, doing things differently. It's kind of like that process of going back to your basics, like when you're like losing your mind and you're like, I don't know what to do and all the things are all crazy. Breathe, cough, cry if you need to, whatever. And then you go back to your basics. And so whenever I look at it that way, kind of like whenever my practice is sort of like taking a little bit of a nosedive, because it happens from time to time. You get caught up in life, you get caught up in the natural cycles of other things, of work, of, you know, school and kids and life. And the way that our cycles work naturally, I mean, like, look, I've got artificial light. My shirt somehow, it looks like it's like a weird yellow color, and it's actually mustard. Funny things happen with light when human beings control it. And so we stay up late, we get out of that cycle, and then we sort of push ourselves into this, like a false cycle, essentially. And it messes up with a lot of things. I've been looking at a lot of different like health resources and stuff. I was talking about just the absence of that natural circadian rhythm throws off all sorts of other stuff. And I actually did a few nights in a row where I took, because my blood pressure's been really high, because you need to know that, right? But it happens. But when I got sleep on a regular cycle for like 2 weeks in a row, like without my medications, it was like, it wasn't perfect, but it definitely made a big difference. And so those cycles, they make more of a difference than we think that we do. And this is part of the reason that we have this whole journaling thing when we're starting things out. And it gives us an opportunity to just kind of discuss what we're going to be doing. And then hopefully, you know, if somebody else does it this month, next month, I don't know, months down the line. That's the nice thing about, you know, social media and YouTube, is that it stays out there for like a long period of time. And then, you know, who knows, a year from now, somebody will write me and say, hey, I did this. That's great. We want to hear about it. Because it's not just like, I can look at my own practice and say, this is what's helped me, but that's anecdotal for one person. Until you have, that's kind of like, I think that's part of the reason that I do miss having classes, and I miss having that kind of robust dialogue, because it's like, you know, especially as adults, like it's a little bit different. When I started practicing, I was like, you know, like 17, 18 with my first class, and I was still younger, and the people teaching it were quite a bit older, and they were, you know, I was listening. But as I've gotten older, it's like I've watched it with my own students. I've watched with the way that I learn as well. And adults don't want to be told what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Even kids these days. Maybe kids back in the day were used to it. I don't know. I don't remember a time where I was super cool with being told what to do, though. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's better off if we have enough people with a dialogue saying, hey, this is what works for me. And that's the same reason that you're going to find there's a bunch of pages with templates. I'm going to post the ones that I like personally, and they'll have like my art and stuff, and just the thing we used to do. So I'm going to write it up just like I've been doing the quick ritual tonight. I don't want to keep you guys on here forever. I appreciate, but it is getting a little bit of a longer than planned, which should be okay. I'm breaking it up. So what we're going to do is just kind of write it down here, and then I will take a picture of everything and get it into the blog. So if you have any questions, you know, and I'll get it onto the video at the end. So I'm going to use one of the more simpler ones. There are quite a few ones on there. Like I said, when I'm doing my own, I'll take a picture of the art and stuff. And there's a different process that I have. But if you're not used to using a journal for any like specific purpose, whether it's a book of shadows, so like a ritual diary, when you're first starting out, so if you are first, you know, you're kind of getting your practice together, a few things that I would recommend. The first and foremost is journaling. I know it sounds silly. It's kind of like, oh, well, you just need to journal and get in touch with your feelings. It's not just about being in touch with your feelings. It's about being accountable and being able to honestly see empirically what worked and what didn't work and what happened when you did this for a ritual, and having it as an actual, like an empirical, provable over time to yourself. Because when you're dealing with the world of magic, you essentially, it's like as much as I wouldn't expect a doctor to diagnose themselves, it's the same reason that even for myself, I generally don't read my own tarot cards without somebody there for accountability. And I know that there's been this huge push for solitary practitioner. I have no problem with people practicing solitary. One of the first books that I ever read back in the 90s was Scott Cunningham's Guide to the Solitary Practitioner. And I've used that for first year students plenty of times. There's nothing wrong with it. It has very base level information so that you understand it gets you into the rhythm of doing mantras, of doing chants. It has your sigils. It has the general overview. I might not always agree with the history. You're going to see, I use that book specifically as an example on how the history is kind of buggered, but it's a simple approach and there's nothing wrong with that. Those types of books though bred a different type of practice. So where I was coming from, everything was very much it was secretive. It had value to it that was either monetary or time, and you had to work to be able to get the training and the knowledge. Now the knowledge is everywhere, which is, and I don't know, I used to have feelings about it more strongly than I do now. I think at the end of the day, it still requires work to learn it. And it requires a level of submission that all of us have to do when we're going through these lessons. So I'm not going to tell anybody exactly what they have to do. I just welcome you to try them. Let me know if it works for you. Or hey, if you've tried it before, let me know that it doesn't work for you. The only thing I generally will be like, hey, did you try it? And if you say no, I'll be like, well, I can't compare my understanding to your understanding. It's I can't uncork that genie. I've already been here. So I generally will be like, hey, if you can go here first, because you're able to go there pretty simply, rather than me going back in time and pretending I never did it and having a conversation just so that I can understand somebody else's perspective. That's a lot of work. So I always tell people, just try it for a month, that's it. And then from there, you can build a practice from there and you can gain conversation, through conversation, you can gain perspective on how to do it. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about today is, so we have the full moon. It's coming in tomorrow at 8/8. We already talked about the Lion's Gate, right? I'm going to put it on here. Lion's Gate. 8/8/21. I always put the date up top. And then I put what the ritual type is. So if you're using a template, it doesn't even matter. But the ritual for this one is new moon. And new moon is coming in Leo. Remember, whenever you're talking about the new moon, it's always going to be the same thing where the sun's at, because the new moon is, right? And so it's almost like a double dose of that. So what energies do we have coming in with that? And what other correspondences do we have that go along with the astrology and the ritual as it is pertaining to what we're doing? So in this case, like I said before, normally with new moon, we would want to be doing intentions and we'd want to be starting things. I am less thrilled about that, but I've been less thrilled about this whole year, because keep in mind, when we're talking about, Uranus and Saturn being, all oppositional and don't do that. Okay, yes, they're kind of, could potentially be cock-blocking some plans, especially as you go into full moon, because, Venus is going into a more amorous placement. Right now she's hanging out in Virgo. So, we're showing our love through doing things for people, or, whether it's going to the store or doing dishes or picking up the laundry or, that kind of stuff. The very Virgo, super romantic. Yay. Romance. That's your thing. Cool beans, vanilla. Not mine. I'm looking forward to it moving. But that being said, you also have think about it when you consider that across the way, Saturn's sitting there looking at you, and it's like having your dad watch you. That's kind of awkward. That's like a Mormon first date. No offense to Mormons, but you guys do have chaperones. That's not me being a jerk. And then you have Uranus, which is like very much about doing your own thing, which would be cool. Except both of them are also retrograde. So it's kind of a poop sandwich. On the good side, energy is not doing quite, later in the year we had, well, in February we had it. We had, if you remember, towards the end of February, good times were had by all. Now we have the retrograde side of it. December 24th, we have it full force direct right for Christmas. So they're like, hey, what you've always wanted? Butt stuff. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And they're like, yeah, you did. Sorry. Already ordered. Can't return it. So we have that to look forward to. This one, if we could just like get out of it unscathed, that'd be awesome. But there's no problem getting out of it unscathed. All we have to do is take control of the energies instead of letting it, you can't uncork it. Well, it hasn't been done yet. So instead, you just dodge it. You say, nope, not doing that. I'm going to take control. It's sort of like when you're reading tarot and you get to the point that you're like, I'm going to go and ignore this. I'm going to ignore that. And then you get the tower and you're like, haha, you can't ignore that. And it all crumbles around. And it's for the good later. Like usually, you get to be a phoenix and fly free, fly. It's great. It's wonderful. Everybody loves it when somebody comes along and kicks our sandcastle that we live in and laughs and walks away unscathed. So instead of going through that, because that's kind of like, it's not saying that it's guaranteed to be bad. There's no guarantee because this is dealing with astrology and it's not prescriptive. But the chances are, so you have all this wide, awesome expansion stuff, right? You've got the Lion's Gate. You've got Mercury clarifying for you. You've got Chiron saying, hey, get by with a little help from my friends. I'm your friend. I'll help you. Right? It's going to teach you how to do stuff. Awesome. You should do some rituals to start something new, right? No. Don't do that. Because the problem with it is that everything else is totally like, it looks good on paper, but it's like you got to if you feel really lucky, then I guess do whatever you want. But I feel lucky most of the time. Yeah, most of the time. I'm just like, I'll just wing it, whatever. And that usually works out for me. I'm not willing to wing it. So if you are, I would love to hear that story and how well it works out for you. That'd be great. I'm not going to. My advice instead is to write down new moon. And instead of intent, keep an idea, right? Use this moon to clear things away. So instead of making your intent, I'm going to build this up, right? You can still do the same thing because magic is essentially, at the end of the day, it's about your words. So if you want to do a ritual at the new moon and you want to build your intent, you want to establish that energy, right? Essentially, it's kind of like you are planting it at the new moon. And then you're watching it as the moon waxes and that energy is growing and growing and growing. And you're building up and you're culminating to the full moon, which you confirm it. And, if you're old school pagan, you have like an awesome orgasm, the fivefold kiss, and boom, bang, bang, manifest things. In this case, it's like doing, like when you check your math and you do it backwards. So instead of saying, I'm going to plant something to allow it to grow, instead, what you can do, it's like take control of what you can take control of. If you're putting something out there to manifest, you essentially, you're giving it to God at that point. Whichever God you want to think about, but once you release it with magic, it's like, okay, I've done my part. I've planted it. I've put the intent there. Go, fly free. Become magic and come back to me. Well, you have those two buttholes across the way being all grumpy because they're in like retrograde and they can't do what they want. They don't want you to have fun. I don't know. What are they going to do about it? I don't know. That's the whole point. That's why when you're dealing with it, it's not just that they're opposed, it's that you've got both of them opposed. So you've got that T-square energy that's like, nope. I don't know. Whenever I see like a total cock block from the universe, I go, okay, universe. The universe is a lot bigger than me. I don't know why you guys want to like mess with it. So for those of you that don't want to mess with it, I'm going to put the journal entry up there, but just real quick, we'll just go through it. Just the general stuff that you need to have. It would be the same thing for your dreams, except for applied to dream time. It'll be easier, I think, when you see them all together, but it's more along the fact of, for transparency's sake, see, I'm writing it down. Still, all these years later, you still have to do that. Even if you do it in your head, you still have to be accountable for it. And if you write it down, then you can actually show it to somebody else and prove that, we'll talk about being a crazy person later. But you can empirically prove that before said things, this was your plan, this was your intent. Think about writing down in your ritual journal sort of like your thesis, right? Or your hypothesis. It's like doing science. It all kind of comes from the same place if you think about it. Like the old alchemical notebooks, when they were like searching out for the philosopher's stone, that's where we get a lot of our outlines from. So you're going to write down things like you're going to have the ritual name, you've got the new moon, the other correspondences are, you've got Saturn, and you've got Uranus, and Virgo is in, oh wait, I said that backwards. Venus in Virgo. See, that's why that's cool, but sometimes it is nice to look things forward because like, yeah, you're like, oh, it's not a whole lot of fun right now. It's actually quite a bit of, you know, like if you're manifesting quitting something and you look at like what's going on, if you look at the last couple, you know, like say last week really, as this has been kind of going into that more forceful opposition, and look at those points where you've had friction, because essentially that's what that's what they are bringing to the table. It's a bunch of friction, and 3 times this year. So it's almost like we're building up to something, but I don't know about you. I haven't found what, like even when I look at the astrology, it seems like whenever we've had this historically, I've seen it and I've pinpointed it through, like when I was doing the timeline of magic, we talked about it a little bit. We always see huge like upheavals politically at those times. So, I mean, I think we've already had enough upheaval politically. I don't know, man. I'm just gonna like sit here and have some popcorn and watch it just happen and document it. But when you look forward, like Venus moving forward, right? And then we know that everything that we're going to be culminating still and focusing on. So if you clear that away and you say, hey, I am the common denominator here. I can take control of myself. Because at the end of the day, you can always take control of yourself. So when you look at it, you can do one of 2 things. If you have an idea what it is you need to stop, like, you know, like if you've been binge drinking every day and you come home, you get in a fight with your wife, maybe you should not binge drink for a while. Pretty easy, right? But say you come home every day, you've been working your butt off, and your partner's just being, and you still have arguments, but you're not binge drinking, and you don't know what you're doing wrong. You have no idea. At that point in time, that's when we say go back to our basics. Just do something different. This couldn't be the first time you've had this argument and stuff. So you're going to focus on changing the course, because that's where you have the control. You can change that course. You don't always know where it's going to lead you, but you know that you're not going to be repeating the same thing. So you're still using that manifestation energy to cut something off from the source. We know through the Hermetic principles that when we cut something off through the source, we open things up for the second principle, which is correspondences. And so we have that resonation, and that's how you move forward with it. So instead of manifesting, you're saying, hey, I need a new car, but first I have to sell my old car, right? So get rid of your old car this weekend and start looking for a new car. It's the best analogy I got. Hopefully it makes sense. But I'm going to write all of the other stuff here, and I'm going to make my little boxes. Tomorrow morning around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is when the new moon hits. So what you could do technically, especially if you're not planning on doing manifestation, it's a lot easier. I already have the stuff that's up here. I already put it up there. Because I'll put a couple of samples in there in the blog so you can see it. But essentially, if you're going to be closing something off, you could use sigil magic. You could use knots. You could use mantra. A little bit of doing, like, if you feel into it tomorrow, you'll still have that energy with that gateway open for 8/8. So you'll actually start to have things move out like later in the day tomorrow. So if you did all of your stuff tonight to address the new moon energy and to use that and to utilize it, that would be smart. Because then, you know, if there is any repercussions, sorry, I'm sleeping. And then you're not there for it. And then it just sits there on your altar. Find a place for it to, you know, manifest, not where, like, somebody's going to come along and be like, ew, what's that? I don't believe in magic. And then just squash all your stuff. Like, be responsible, obviously. But then later in the day tomorrow, you can spend that time, you know, opening up, saying what's up to your higher self. And the nice thing at that point in time is that's when you're starting to build things moving forward because you've taken control of yourself. Well, now things are opened up. That gateway's opened up. You can talk. Mercury's there like, hey, I know some things. And he can help you. And it kind of really comes together. It's just, there's going to be a few people out there that's really going to suck for it. And I'm sorry. I'm going to hunker down and hope it's not me. Other than that, we are going to finish up ritual here tonight. We'll post our stuff on the Hydrophant, the Learning Library, tomorrow. And then for the rest of this month, we're going to try to do a little bit more live as you do it kind of group online things. If that makes any sense. I'll put all the directions up there. I always kind of feel weird about saying them out loud because it's like, okay, well, what do you mean you're gonna? And then it's just like you're kind of rambling through with it. But as I'm finishing this last part of it up here, it's got Saturn is in retrograde. Uranus is retrograde. What else do we got over here? Got the other one. Make sure I've got the right time on it. That's what I wanted to make sure of. Landscape occurs on the day of. So while you have the new moon, just so you know, you have the new moon at, it says on here when I was looking at it, 9:38 Eastern. So it's actually less than 12 hours away, which is kind of neat because like at that point, it's already starting to come together. They're already in the opposition. It's not like they're moving in tomorrow, you know. We've been dealing with the opposition for, you know, already been dealing with it. So if you've been feeling on edge, if you've been feeling a little bit nervous, it's probably where it's coming from. It's a bunch of friction out in the world. Just kind of, hey, you should think about yourself. You know what you should do? You got all that like awesome Leo energy that's like, you should treat yourself. And you're like, you're not fucking worth it. You're like, yes, I am. So like after tomorrow, that push should at least be a little bit less towards the negative. So just kind of, you know, wait for it. Trust that it's going to open up. With everybody, it might be slightly different based off of your astrology. And that's okay. You have that window outside of it. So it's not like you're going to miss it. I bet you didn't say that before. They're like, oh no, I don't want to miss it. I'm like, it's not going anywhere. It'll be there in an hour. You're good. You know, just try to take the time to utilize it. And then if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on, I would say actually for this kind of stuff is the Learning Library, because even if I'm not there, then somebody else will answer for you. So, but if not, you can reach out to us on Anchor through the podcast, or you can message it through YouTube, all the ways. So thank you guys. I will make sure that I post the templates on there later this evening, but I'm going to post this part of it first and get everything together. You guys have a very safe New Year's. Get some sleep. New Year's. New moon. Get some sleep. Try not to dream. Take your melatonin. Be responsible. You got this. Peace.